Welcome to the Fit2 Talk podcast.
Thank you, as always, for joining us as we bring you meaningful, helpful, and accurate information. And
Remind you that fitness doesn't have to be boring.
right now, you're listening to one of our talk episodes during which Bobby and I do pretty much this.
Pretty much.
As always.
Bibbidi bobbidi bobbidi.
Exactly. And if you like what we do, then please leave us a review.
And on that note, unleash the music.
Unleash the music.
It was unleashed.
Like hounds.
Yeah. I was torn between unleash the music or release the music, like release the Kraken.
Release. Oh.
Release the Kraken.
Next time.
Yeah.
Next time, release the Kraken.
I remember I did a promo gig once at Glastonbury Festival, and I was dressed as King Triton.
Casual.
Walking around just Glastonbury. And all I did was chase a mermaid around and then randomly stand there and go, release her!
I got paid, I'm assuming, relatively well.
It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Plus I got to go to Glastonbury. So
I'm sorry.
I'll take the wins. That's an absolute
Free
win.
ticket to
Free ticket to Glastonbury. It was glorious.
In a change to our usual programming,
Yes.
you're going to tell us a joke.
I am going to tell us a joke. Okay.
By the way, people listening to this, we genuinely don't tell each other these jokes beforehand because that would suck.
Yeah, what's the point in that?
So yeah, I'm excited to hear it.
Okay. What is a vampire's least favourite day of the week?
Okay, we'll hear the rest at the end. What is a vampire's least favourite
No, don't
day
think
of the
about it
week?
because you'll probably work it out.
No, okay.
You'll probably work it out.
But can I just say that the stakes are high?
Oh my God. Okay, good. Side joke. Little snack on the side.
I've got more of them, but it's not the
Oh
time.
no.
It's not the time. So this is in response to a listener question.
Listener question.
And it's worth saying, we've had this question for a while.
We have been sat on this one, yes.
Yeah, and I think it's worth saying that I think we've been sat on it for over a year.
Yep.
And due to stuff happening in life, we decided at the time that it was not the right time to have this discussion.
Yeah.
And now maybe it is.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Maybe not. Yeah, exactly.
We might cut this.
Let's decide at the end of the podcast whether
we release it or not.
Whether this was a good choice.
Well, I'll read you them. Now, there's two chunks to this message, but they say this. I won't say the name of the person, but they said, I've got a podcast request for you. They said, and it's about the topic of male friendships. In this more open age of vulnerability, are they easier to maintain, or is there still the toxic masculinity stigma? I know for me it's difficult. I don't have a lot of guy friends, but the ones I do have I treasure. But the going deep is still elusive to them. Mm-hmm. This person says, as a singer, I've always been unafraid to express my feelings. I got bullied for it growing up. Boys didn't sing or like musicals. I wasn't an athlete due to my something issues, but I like sport. I just couldn't play them. So there's tons to...
There's a lot in that question to kind of unpack, and a lot of it is kind of not necessarily together. It's not the same question necessarily.
Yeah, that's fine. Full ep.
Yeah, this is going to take a full episode. Let's break it down.
And probably, potentially a tricky topic, but also, usually, as always, interspersed with some of our weirdness.
We'll try.
So I think, let's start off at the start. It's the topic of male friendships.
Yeah.
Like, what's your experience of that been like?
It's difficult. I think from my experience, I have predominantly, as an adult at least, been friends with women in general. I would say the majority of my close friends are female. And I haven't gone out of my way to do that. And I don't necessarily know why that has happened. It's not that I'm actively going, hey, I don't want to have close male friends because I don't want to share things with them. But it's, I've naturally, maybe something about my personality, or maybe something about who I am within a company, or I don't know. There's something about me that has somehow ended up in this kind of situation where predominantly my friends are female. So yeah, I think that's quite interesting.
It is. It's so fascinating because, I don't think I necessarily have that perception of you.
No.
So you'll have this group that you'll go and watch the American football with, or et cetera, or that have the the fantasy leagues.
Oh yeah, the NFL,
stuff like
NFL, yeah,
groups of male friends, which I think traditionally, I wonder if this is a perception thing, because I think perhaps traditionally that is what guy friends do, and then there isn't this greater depth to it. And I don't know, but maybe that is like, I don't need to talk about this other stuff. I don't need more layers.
I think, yeah. I mean, I would say like it makes sense that I have bonded with other guys over NFL.
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes sense. It just happens.
Common ground,
common interest. And I know I do know plenty of women who like NFL as well, but they, for some reason, are just not necessarily interested in the fantasy side. Yeah. Although saying that, like now, Jay Elster, who we've just had on the podcast, she loves NFL.
We should say that the fantasy side is not like orcs and goblins playing American football. For anyone that doesn't know, it's like a league where you do all the stats and trades and stuff.
Yeah, it's just stats. Trading players. It's just fun. It's stats. How are stats fun? But yeah, so now she's part of the league. So that's not about necessarily like going, hey, no girls allowed.
Oh god, yeah, it's not a boundary.
But yeah, I think it's that's just a common interest thing. I think kind of there's kind of, I suppose there are kind of levels to friendships. Like you have those groups of friends where it's about a common interest. You have one thing that you love, like NFL for that. Then I do think there are different, like I wouldn't necessarily go to some of the people in that group. There are a couple of people in that group who I would go to if I wanted to talk about something, but they, as a whole, wouldn't be my first port of call. There are definitely friends who I'm closer to, and that I've got male friends who I'm much closer to than that. So, yeah.
I think it's interesting, and especially fascinating because that I'm the same. Like, for me, I've always found it much easier to get on with women.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I don't think I understood what male interactions really were. To me, it looked a lot like, why are these people like physically hurting each other? Like, which quite often was the way. They'd be like slapping each other on the back, or like not trying to get the best out of each other. Is how I perceived it. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
And often hyper competitive, and I really dislike relationships where people put each other down.
Yes.
I don't even like it as banter. Like, it makes me uncomfortable.
I'm not a fan.
Because I grew up with that being real. So it wasn't a joke. So I don't hear it as one.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I know your intention isn't that, and I can feel that, but also I'm like, I don't appreciate you insulting me and calling it a joke, because it's still an insult.
Yeah. just because you preface it with no offense, or
I'm like, mate, you're shit at this. You're like, well, you're only saying that because I haven't done a great job. Like, it's unhelpful. Like I never really got it. Even when and just to be clear, I was playing sports. I was doing all of that stuff, and I was pretty good at it. I wasn't like, I excelled in some of those things. I didn't appreciate that sort of way around. And I wonder, for me, I've always attributed it to, I can't say that word today. Attributed it.
We've all been struggling with that word.
Attributed it. Because my dad was on tour all the time. Yeah. He just wasn't there. So, I had my mum and my sister. So I agreed to be really, my way of thinking was the same way as these two people, who then, traditionally when I was brought up to really pay attention to what other people were feeling and caring about. And I'm not saying all women are like that, but the two that I lived with were.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was like. And, I was described as sensitive quite a lot, especially when I was younger. I would show my emotions quite a lot. I would cry. And then I actually talked about this the other day. I really clearly remember it was my birthday. I was like 7-ish, either 7 or 8, around then. And I fell and I scraped like all the skin off my elbows, something like that. I'm 7. Anyway, I cried because I would cry if I hurt myself.
Yeah.
And my dad called me a little crybaby and said that I should, that I was old enough to behave like a man now. And I remember being in the toilet, crying in the mirror and trying to wash these things by myself and going, okay, I won't cry from now on.
Wow.
And going, okay, right, well, that's what being a man is. And my dad is not like in any way, a lad or a blokey guy and something that like, but this old idea still has crept its way in at that point. And now as an adult, I've dealt with that stuff. I'm like, talked about it to the people I need to talk about and go, cool, we're in that place. But I think it's a fascinating moment. I'm grateful that I remember it because I think those things happen all the time to most people. And we don't really pay attention or realize that that's how we got somewhere. That you're like, oh, okay, when I'm sad, I'm not allowed to cry. So how do I deal with this? What emotion do I filter it through? And obviously that's like from my dad, but maybe that is the first interaction that you have, with a male in that sense. I don't know what was yours like.
Well, it's interesting. It's really interesting, kind of what you said about. Oh no, my mind has gone blank.
What did I say?
You did say something very interesting. No, you said something interesting. Oh my God, why has my mind gone blank?
Because it's a difficult topic.
It is a difficult topic. It kind of draws parallels to what we were talking about a couple of episodes ago, kind of emotional processing. This is it.
Yeah.
Talking about how you were kind of going against what was around you. And I think that is true of me as well. Like, I think what you said about how you didn't like kind of lads, I'm using air quotes, being lads, like the kind of like aggressiveness, the mocking, the just like boisterous behavior. I didn't like that either. So I think I naturally went, hey, I don't want part of that. I want to be associated with something else. That doesn't sit right with me. Yeah. So I feel like the way I am with my friends now has kind of stemmed from that, in that that's never been something that I've been after. I've never been after a relationship or a friendship where like mocking is seen as the go-to. Like I'm all for having fun, but that, like you said, like if you're saying hurtful words, they're still going to be hurtful, even if you're joking. It's still hurtful words. Like, and
I'm sure there's people listening to this being like, "Oh, you just need a thicker skin," like because that's the way you communicate, and that's fine. I'm not asking anyone else to communicate in a different way, and neither are you.
No, like this is the way we communicate. We're talking about us. We're talking about us in this situation.
But I'm also like, there is a better way to do it, in my opinion, than going, "Hey, hey, dickhead, like, what do you want?" Like, no thanks.
No,
like
I'm not for that.
I don't need to build up the willpower to resist my interactions with you without coming away harmed. Don't tell me that that's a necessary way that I need to go through the world, because I can just not interact with you. Yeah. So why would I do that? Like, I don't need to put myself in those situations. And I think it's tricky because he's mentioned toxic masculinity in this message, and that is partly what we're talking about because I was on rugby teams, etc. And that was, people would be getting changed and people would be like rounding a towel and like smacking the shit out of each other. And I'm like, don't fucking touch me with the towel.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are you doing that?
And it's difficult. I think at that age, if you react like that, you are definitely seen as the outsider.
100%.
You have to kind of toe the line and be part of that group, or you're seen as, it becomes a little bit like cool kids and not cool kids.
It's exactly that, yeah.
And like, I was definitely not part of the cool kids because that wasn't for me. Like, I wanted to just like have a nice time.
Yeah. Can we play the rugby that we're here to do? Let's have a great time doing it. I want to have a laugh with you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you don't need to insult me while we have a laugh. Like, I think part of the question was about whether that's the stigma is going away. But I think what we're discovering is that actually we've been like this for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
So it's really hard for us to answer that, because I think our relationship, this same person has asked a different question about how we became friends previously, which I think we actually answered.
Yes.
But, our interactions have always sat into that kind of realm where, like, I'm trying to think of a time where we mock ourselves. I think that's where our humor comes from.
Yeah, we're quite self-deprecating in general.
I've said today that I've got a massive giant head on the podcast. I'm like, let's make jokes about that. And that opens the door for other people to do so. You go, hey, let's have a joke about this thing. Then we're all in.
Yeah.
Like, but otherwise, I don't know. I just never know where the boundaries are.
Yeah.
Take it too far.
That's the thing. You've got to suss people out. You can't go pushing boundaries too early on. But yeah, I think male friendships are very interesting. Like, I can talk about kind of our friendship and how we came to be as friends. And I think the thing is, it was just a very natural friendship. It just kind of happened. And we've just kind of evolved as friends in that we do talk about quite in-depth things. We do discuss our feelings. We do, even today, we like have had a break between podcasts and we've sat down and we've discussed how we're feeling at the moment. And I would say that's just come quite naturally. But I think that is because you and I have been drawn together because we have very similar kind of beliefs and we have very similar kind of morals. And I think that has allowed us to kind of open up to each other about how we're feeling. And like, I will say I'm very like closed in general. I don't tend to reveal much about myself to people. Like I go through things and I will happily like not tell anyone about it. And for me, I think that's because I don't want to put my stuff on other people. But I will always tell the people who I am closest to, and yeah, and some of them are guys, some of them are girls. Some like there's no, I don't in my head see a difference.
This, I think, is it. I was thinking this earlier on because it's a strange question about male and female, and we don't need to go down a huge gender thing, but like I was brought up that whatever somebody's gender, like I was very lucky that it was in the arts.
Yeah.
I mean, I was brought up. It was like it doesn't matter. Everyone is genuinely equal. Was what I was taught. It was literally like be friends with who you want. Like it didn't matter. And so you're in that position where you go, yeah, I'm friends with people who share the same values as me and want to experience life in the same way that I do. So then if I want to be able to not talk about stuff, and those people will understand. Or if I do want to talk about stuff, those people will understand too. Or you might have different people to fulfill different things. And then their sort of gender or sex is irrelevant, of course. But it's just that at the moment, that has been our experience up until this point. We should caveat that. That's sort of where most of this has sort of come from, specifically with this question. I do find it interesting that, I think we sort of have, we work so much.
Yes, yeah, we do.
It's my sister is always banging on about how hard she's working, and I'm like, you start work at 9 o'clock, you get paid every week, and you have done every week for the last 15 years in your safe job, and you finish work at 5. You go home, and fantastic, you're off. That's not what this is. And I'm not saying this is that isn't difficult.
No. I'm not crying about like what we're doing. We're not saying boo-hoo, like please feel sorry for us.
We're doing this because we love it. Like, and we want to do this. And the same thing, we chose to be performers. We chose to be personal trainers. We chose to make our living this way and share this with people. But at the same time, like, it is really, really tough and draining. Like, especially when we've been doing this for so long, alongside everything else, not making any money from this for well over a year now.
Yeah.
And it's a full-time job for two people, not just the podcast, but the coaching, Fit2 Perform. We've released a book in that time. We've been delivering workshops. Like, it's been insane.
Yeah.
And so we have this like friendship where we have like the work version of us, I think.
Yes.
Which is like when we've got tasks to do, when it's kind of like we knuckle down and we just sort of do that. And then for a little bit of time, there was like only that version of us when we were like so swamped in this, and it was every day and never ended. And I think we haven't spoken about this, so I feel like perhaps me specifically, and as a result of that, I'm getting better at slightly not doing that as much.
Yeah, I would say we have become better at not like physically separating the two elements, but we have become better at like compartmentalizing them and going, hey, this is a moment where, like, even today, like, we worked, we went to Greg's.
Yes.
On the way back from Greg's, we sat down in the park and had a chat, and it was just us being friends, us being us, and it wasn't to do with work. And I think we've been lucky, and it's not necessarily lucky, but I think we work well as friends and as business partners because we don't let anything kind of like break the friendship. We don't let anything like chip away at the friendship. Like, we have disagreements. We don't agree on everything. That's human nature. But that doesn't become part of our friendship. Like,
so far.
Yeah. There's still time.
By the end of this.
This episode is
the episode of male friendships destroys ours. I'm kind of here for that.
Yeah.
This person said, I know for me it's hard. I don't have a lot of guy friends. The ones I do have, I treasure, but the going deep is still elusive to them. I do think this is common. I think it touched on something you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
That actually one of the things, like you mentioned, I hope you don't mind me referencing this.
No.
That you'll say, hey, this is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want you to know that. But you won't want to talk about it.
No.
And I think perhaps that's what this person is saying when they say, I don't have that idea of going deep. Whereas I think perhaps I'm going to, traditionally, that might be the outcome from a more feminine aspect. If in that realm, you might have somebody go, okay, like, how do you feel about it? And then going through that sequence.
Potentially that's true. I just think it's about who the person is.
Maybe you just don't want to talk to me.
Yeah. Maybe. No, but
why?
I do think it's about who the person is. It's nothing to do with their sex or their gender.
100%.
I think
this question is from they're American, the person, I should say. It's from a different time. But
it's about who you are and who that person is. It's about your relationship. Like, I will, for example, if we take the way I kind of react with things, I will tell you something's wrong, and then I will then go and like sit on it, and I think that all stems from, I don't want people to feel sorry for me, and I don't want to I always think I don't want to put my problems on other people, is what runs through my head. And that's part of a much bigger thing that I know I personally need to deal with in my life. But like, for example, I will say to you, this has happened, X has happened. And then when I'm ready to talk about it, we will just begin a discussion. And you're very good at not going, how are you? Like, not just like forcing the matter. We will just have a discussion, and then we will just end up going down these kind of rabbit holes of us talking about kind of how we're feeling, like what is actually going on, and us actually like delving deeper into what is happening. But I think it's difficult because I would say I don't have many of those, and I don't want to use the word typical male friendships. But what is a typical male friendship?
Well, that's a whole other discussion, isn't it? I think this is the issue around all of the gender stuff, is the idea that there is behavior that is ascribed to any kind of sex or gender. It is nonsense and kind of incredibly frustrating, which unpacks a whole load of stuff that we don't need to go down. So I think for the purposes of this discussion, we can use traditionally male and traditionally female in that concept, in that believe us when we're not saying that that's exclusively male or exclusively female or anything like that. I think hopefully people take that with the intended meaning rather than anything else.
Yes.
I wouldn't. And please feel free to message us if we use the wrong wording of something.
Absolutely,
Please correct it. But please take our meaning from a positive place.
Yeah. So I think it's just about us as people and how we process things.
But I guess the question then is the way we process things, like I think the way you mentioned, is incredibly common with men.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you're right, it absolutely is, but it's just very prevalent behavior amongst men. Like, to not share your problems is classically a male behavior to avoid being seen as weak, because weakness is negative and changes your status. And that can have multiple outcomes, either being mocked or whatever it might be that we've already discussed. You know, you can't possibly give the guys something that they can rip you for. Like, in any way, shape or form, or show any weakness. And it's just not the case. It's almost like traditionally women's idea of sharing things creates bonds. Like, we now know that gossiping creates fantastic bonds between human beings. Like, gossiping is good for you, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But it creates a shared story that you and, you know, you mentioned something, you know, actually on that emotional processing episode, I said I've really struggled to identify what I'm feeling. And that's something I've been working on for a couple of years now, of going like really actively in a moment, trying to go, how do I actually feel about this?
Yeah.
And where do we go from there? And same when we have these discussions, even earlier on in that break, when I was like, I was telling you a story about what was happening in my life right now. And I was like, you know, this is what happened. And it's quite easy to share the facts of something.
Yeah.
For me, I'm like, here are the things that happened in sequence. And then to go, how did I feel about it? That is trickier.
Yeah, that's incredibly tricky.
And I'm like, I don't know if we're taught to do that well.
I think that's it. I don't think we are taught how to process what we're feeling, how to understand what that feeling is. Because how do you teach it?
Well, this is, I think, from having an understanding of how to do those things yourself, you know, like part of this life coaching qualification and a lot of the mindset work that you do. I think it's, you know, inevitably most of what you learn, if you're lucky enough to be brought up with your 2 parents bringing you up or 4 parents bringing you up, or whoever brings you up as your guardians, you navigate your way through the world, at least for the first 3-4 years, pretty much solely by their guidance.
Yep.
And then other people start to have an effect on you. But who you end up taking that guidance from, even at that age, tends to be informed by what you've already learned. And then, you know, that guardianship continues until you're 16, 18 for the majority of people. And so we just take on those things. And it's, you know, you're going to identify as being more similar to one parent than the other, most not based off any characteristics. Some people say they're much more like their dad or their mum or whatever. But where you learn that from is normally there. You know, and people say, oh, my family we don't talk about stuff, we don't communicate. And like, I'm trying to do better than that. But it's usually you can see and you go, yeah, you're not great at it in the spectrum of people. Yeah. So you know, we still have those things from there, I think is the point I'm trying to make.
No, but you're right. You're right.
Oh, we've never had that.
It's because it was, so my phone was on Do Not Disturb, but it was my alarm company. Somebody set off my alarm.
So Bobby's being robbed.
I know what it is. It's doggy daycare.
Oh,
Bert's home. Bert's home and they've accidentally set off the alarm.
Lovely.
Fantastic. I'll deal with that in a minute.
As long as they can get in.
Oh, Bert's home.
Bert's not. That's how to get the best response out of Bobby. Dogs.
Yeah, dogs, all the way, dogs. I was looking at my Instagram last night, and you know when you go on the search thing, I was like, all I see at the moment is Frenchies, tennis, and Warhammer 40k.
What have you been looking at, man? I'm like, the less said about the three of those, the better.
Yeah.
I'm literally like, what else did you put in this? Got bullied for expressing your feelings growing up. This sucks, but I hope this has changed. I think it has. I have no knowledge of what it's like.
Yeah, we don't know what it's like in
Sorry,
schools
I was playing
now.
footsie with you there by
No,
accident.
thank you. I enjoyed it. That's a new element of our friendship. Yeah, that sucks. That sucks that they've experienced that. Like, yeah, we have no real knowledge of whether that has changed. And I'd like to think it has changed, but I also go, I don't know if it has.
Kids are mean.
Yeah.
They will find, every single person has any kind of feature about them that makes them different. Will usually have a story of them being bullied for it.
Yeah.
Everyone from whatever that is, like my nose is too big, I've got red hair. But then there is no person that doesn't have one thing that is, I'm going to use the word different about them. There isn't a normal.
Yeah.
So everyone has those features. It's just that we take them on board and they're ingrained then as this like thing that makes you the thing that was picked on for. You're like, but I'm sure there's someone somewhere who is an exception to this, and good for them, but they were probably bullying other people. Like,
yeah.
Like everyone has that stuff. And to be honest, it's what makes you interesting.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a far better person than I would have been if I hadn't had these teeth at the age of 6. Yeah. It was useful.
Good. I'm glad.
For eating carrots.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll stand by that.
Yeah, fair.
I said what wasn't an athlete due to, I don't know how valuable that is to this, but just I guess on that topic of male friendships, we can only speak about our experiences.
Yeah.
We can't, we've probably already made some, or I've probably made some wide-ranging judgments across to try and make sense of this discussion, I suppose. But I think the idea of a classic male friendship, and especially when you watch things like Love Island,
yeah,
you see that there is I think that's probably a good way of pigeoning this, right? If you go, well, that's a program that a lot of young people look up to those people and emulate them.
Yeah.
And there's a different set of expectations of behavior for the men and the women in that show. Now, I don't mean from the producers, but immediately placed on by them. Like about how stuff is handled, how it's treated, how they discuss things. Now, they go through a whole bunch of courses before they do that show in how to treat each other and speak. So it is slightly getting a little bit better.
Yep.
Because there were some moments that were pretty hairy in the past. Especially like coercive behavior, things like that. They, now they get training in that and hopefully better off throughout their lives for it. But perhaps that's a good example of like what might be termed classic of these things at the moment is.
Yeah, and I wonder if something like that is kind of reinforcing it again. Maybe it was, in my head, maybe it was getting better and people were opening up more, and then something like that comes along, and I feel like some of the contestants, some of the male contestants on there probably create this kind of this character where they have these typical male friendships in order to come across a certain way, and in order to maybe not receive a fair amount of attack on Twitter and places like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of theories that say a lot of the behavior we exhibit is simply in order to receive the approval from the sex that we find attractive. So whatever, let's say you're a straight male, the hypothesis goes that you will behave in a way that is reinforced by the women in your life that is deemed to be desirable in a partner. And the same the other way round. So weirdly, it's almost like this microcosm of self-reinforcing behavior, especially looking at Love Island in that way, where even this really old school stuff of being like how many people they've slept with.
Yeah.
Which is like, if that's said between the group of guys on that without the women there, there's one response. And then a slightly different response to when those women are there.
Yep.
And perhaps even a different answer.
Yeah.
it'll still be high enough to make them look desirable, but not so high as to make them look undesirable because they're too in demand and they're unlikely to stay with them. There is like this sweet spot. There's a lot of bizarrely social studies in order to try and find that, and it's nonsense because it changes for every group of people. But it's the same with the women. And however, you'll see this disparity in these answers. It's such a classic question that high school kids ask each other. That's when I watch Love Island now, which is rare, but I have seen some of this one. It's like being 15.
Yeah.
These are grown-up people behaving like 15-year-olds, to me.
Yeah.
That's what I'm watching. And in one sense, that's fantastically entertaining. And in another, it's just sad.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yay, Love Island.
I don't know how we got onto Love Island.
No, I don't know how we got onto Love Island.
Probably it was my fault.
Well, no, but I think it's... I think I would... Well... Love Island, you do see those typical male friendships.
Yep.
It's pretty much entirely that. And it's reinforcing that idea that is what a male friendship should be. And that is also what a female friendship should be. That kind of show is very much saying, no, this is it. This is what it should be. And I think it can just be what it wants to be.
Well, also, as we said, like it's the idea that these are the men and these are the women. Oh, fuck off. Also, one thing that can really get in the bin, and I noticed it on the episode.
Love it.
Was, so this can get in the bin.
Yeah.
The idea of when, in that sense, they're competing, literally competing for the affections of a human being, in this case, a woman, and they say, may the best man win. And you're like, or she'll fucking choose who she wants.
Yeah.
Based off who you are as people. Otherwise, you're playing a game, right? There's some kind of game to play where you can use your skill to get the outcome that's required.
You can manipulate the situation.
You're manipulating this person into choosing you to beat your victor. So the overall aim is to beat him.
Yeah.
To getting her. Like, she's not an object. She's not a prize. May the best man win. Fuck off. Let her decide who she wants to be with based off your characteristics and qualities. Like, yeah, that's not the best man. That's who she prefers.
Yeah.
So annoying as an idea.
Straight in the bin.
But you hear all these things and phrases like that. I'm like, 13-year-olds watch this show. They're hearing this stuff. They take it in, and that's like, like, oh, may the best man win. And then, oh, there's a girl in school, and then, oh, he likes her too. Oh, let's fight. May the best man. That means you'll do anything you can to get that outcome, like lying, like manipulating her, manipulating the people around her. Like, fuck off.
And this is the difficulty. I think what
I've won so much.
You have. What you said before, though, is true. Like, from our era, like, I feel like we got a lot of how we dealt with friendships from our parents. Yeah. But I think now it is true that a lot of people will get this kind of information from the media.
Ooh, yeah.
And you go, maybe it's not. Maybe we're heading down an even worse path.
Well, God, if you start on Love Island, then don't watch things like Too Hot to Handle.
Don't you worry. I'm not watching those.
No, you're busy watching Love is Blind.
No.
Or Married at First Sight.
I have watched Married at First Sight.
I was just throwing all the shows out there.
I watched one series of it during lockdown.
Because I was really famous during that.
Yeah, it was. I watched the famous series of it during lockdown.
The one that caused some drama.
Yes, and then I have not watched it since, and I feel pretty good about my life with that.
I think you should.
Yeah, I'm delighted to not have those kind of shows going on.
I've been drafted into these by Maddie. I refused with Love Island this year. I watched 3 episodes, I think.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't. My brain is melting.
Yeah.
Apparently it's a very good season.
Great. I heard that viewing numbers were down dramatically. So,
then maybe that's a lie.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that in a newspaper. Someone told me. So
I read it on Apple News, I think, that viewing numbers are dramatically down.
Good.
Good. I will say that the one time I have watched Love Island was on tour. And I kind of felt pressured into it.
Oh, same. That's why I started watching it.
To be a part of the group.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different topic. Because you go, hey, I was conforming. I was like changing who I am and what I want to do and what I want to watch, and changing all of that in order to fit in, in order to have.
But that's insanely,
have friendships.
That's insanely normal, and I think that's a lot of what happens with football.
Yeah,
like you get kids that there comes a point where your kid needs to know, or especially when I was in school, you needed to start knowing some stuff about football, or you're probably going to get bullied.
Yeah,
and it was like at the time, as it turns out, quite like football now. Like, but when I was 8, I liked playing football.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. Like, I have never really felt a kinship with any kind of football team, other than perhaps a national one, especially with like rugby.
Of course.
Because I'm like, the people aren't from there.
No.
So Manchester City is no reflection of Manchester City. It is somebody who's not from Manchester City with shitloads of money, who's bought players who are not from Manchester City and paid them insane amounts of money to play in this place. Nothing about this is to do with Manchester City. You could move that club tomorrow to London and it would be the same. So your weird like affinity with this thing is baffling to me. I don't understand.
Yeah. It is weird, like when you first meet, say you're first day at a job, not necessarily a performing job, maybe just like a different job. First day at a job or at a wedding or something. Like you can guarantee one of the first questions.
Do you watch football?
Yeah. Who'd you support?
Yeah. Oh, don't tell me it's Man U.
And you're like, oh yeah, mate. Yeah, I support Fulham.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh, they've had a good season. You're like, yeah.
Yeah. That Mitrovic.
Yeah.
I do actually know a lot about
But I was going to say, the weird thing is like, I do actually like it. I'll go in phases where suddenly there'll be 3 months where I'll be like, oh, I didn't pay attention at all because I was busy. And then I'm like, oh, I've got time. This is interesting again. Like, but it's not like a founding part of my. But for me, like the idea of tribalism as humanity is absolutely part of society, right? We want to be in the in group, not the out group, and that shifts all the time. And if you identify as being part of a club's supporters, then you have an in group that will never go. You have a group of people who you will always have something in common with and somewhere to belong, and we're always searching for those things.
Yeah.
To me, it's just a really bizarre one. It's an arbitrary thing where you'll have fights between Man U players and Man City players. I'm like, you literally live in the same city. You have more in common than 99% of the people in this country.
Yeah.
Like, this is irrelevant. You all love football. You love football in Manchester. In the spectrum of things, you're very similar people.
Yeah. There's, I can't remember which footballer it was. There's been a thing recently. It's kind of been like almost kicking off that there is, it's Ben White. He plays for Arsenal. And he basically came out and said, I don't really like football. He was like, I like playing it.
Yeah.
And I like playing for my team.
Yeah.
I don't watch football.
Yeah.
He's like, and it like he got like torn down for it. But it's like, yeah, that's fine. Like he's great at his job. He does a great job. But it doesn't need to it doesn't need to be like everything. He was like, when I finish my games, I just want to go home to my family, like,
this is
and my friends.
You get this with music theatre.
Yeah.
Like, I know so many performers who love performing, are incredible performers. And they're like, I don't really like going to watch shows. And I completely get that. I don't really like going to watch shows that much. I'm like, I think you're pretty good at going to see shows. You're seeing stuff all the time.
Yeah, I try to go and see stuff because I do love musicals. I love watching musicals. But I'm not going to sit there and go, hey, why aren't you going to watch musicals?
Yeah, but I think it's strange that I'm like, there is this idea that you should have to then spend your time outside of work doing that thing. Yeah. Like, I went to see Newsies yesterday. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, and I really enjoyed it. And I'm like, cool, I had a great time. At the same time, I can't switch off my work brain. Even though Newsies is a show I'm never going to be in. Stop the press. Whoa.
Hold on.
Guys, I don't know if you knew this.
Let me see you do a tour. Let's go.
First of all, because we had Jacob Fisher on the podcast.
We did.
He's in it, and he's fucking fantastic.
He is phenomenal.
And when he was on, he was very careful not to give any spoilers, so I'm going to try not to do the same thing. But he does some cool shit in that show.
Yeah. One thing he does is very, very cool.
My jaw was on the floor. I was like, that is wicked. Yeah. It was really, really cool. But at the same time, even and for all these reasons, show I will never be in. No one in their right mind is putting me in that show, at least for me. And I can't switch it off. Mm-hmm. I can't just listen to somebody singing without going like, oof, or just tilt a little bit. Little less twang, little more like, or watching their acting, even dance, which I know nothing about. I'm like, ooh, like they might be like not all together in that bit, whatever it might be.
It is hard to turn off your like critical brain, I think,
because
it's what we're designed to do now.
Like we have learned all those things. We've spent ages learning what is good and isn't in order to achieve it ourselves. So you can't turn it off.
No, I do think that there are shows that I watch that are so phenomenal that I do.
That's when I love a show.
Yeah, on the right show, I can watch it and I forget everything about what I know. I forget everything about that critical side of my brain, and I just get immersed in what it is. Like Standing at the Sky's Edge, I felt like that. I was like,
do you find? Sorry to interrupt. I usually find that it's like a show that is so different to anything I've ever seen before that because a lot of it's new, I'm like, oh wow, then my brain doesn't have a chance to sort of jump into that zone. Is that the kind of the same? I didn't see Standing at the Sky's Edge, so I don't know.
For me, it's when the story. It's when I get so fully like involved into the story.
That's what I mean.
When the story captivates me, and that's through the writing. That's through that's through kind of the performances. It's also through the technical elements. Like when I'm captivated by the story, then I forget everything else. Then it's like, oh no, I'm just fully into exactly what this is. And yeah, for me, like the most recent show that I had that on was Standing at the Sky's Edge, which was just unbelievable.
It's coming back, though.
It's coming back, and I'm going back to watch it.
You are going. We've digressed a little.
We have. We went slightly off topic.
Totally worth it.
Shall I tell you the joke?
Yes. Remind me of the beginning bit.
What is a vampire's least favorite day of the week?
What is I don't know. What is the vampire's least favorite day of the week?
Sunday.
Hey!
Yeah, that's right. It takes a second and it'll kick in.
That one burns.
Yeah. Hey.
Sunday.
Smoky.
I love it. Okay, rating. I think a solid 7.
I'll take that. Thank you.
I really love an old school, like, dodgy joke.
Yeah. I'm still trying to theme all my jokes at work at the moment.
Okay, to what's happening in life,
either what's going on. Like the reason I did that one is because it was Sunday when I delivered the joke.
And it's hot.
So I was like, I'm gonna go with this joke.
Yeah.
This will be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I try to make it kind of work with what I'm doing. I'm kind of running out, in fairness.
Yeah, it gets tricky.
Yeah, I'm running low on like themed jokes.
Now I'll just change it to a vampire theme and just have a whole bunch of vampire-based jokes.
Yeah, I could try that.
You're like, what's a vampire's least favourite food?
What is it?
Steak.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm sure there's some.
There's going to be plenty more. There's plenty more. There's got to be lots more vampire
we'll get
jokes.
It.
Yeah.
Well, plenty of us. Well, Bobby, thank you for the joke.
You are welcome. I'm sorry I took your joke this week.
I didn't have one.
I wasn't going to mention it.
Thank you, as always, for listening to us here on Fit2 Talk. And don't miss our next guest episode when I believe we are joined by none other than Rob Compton.
Oh, the legend. It's a lovely chat.
Yes, I need to double check that.
You're right. You are right.
It's fantastic. We'll leave it there.
Yeah. You can find us on social media at Fit2_Talk. And don't forget, as always, if you've got any questions you want answered by us, slide into those DMs. I will be in there dressed as a vampire.
Oh, there's some kinks for that somewhere.
Whee.
And if you loved it, leave us a review. And if you like what you've heard, we've been Fit2 Talk with me, Steffan.
And me, Bobby. And if you didn't like it, we've been Joe Wicks. Peace out.